Hello, I'm Rosetta York. Welcome to my reading room. It's wet and gloomy here in North Yorkshire, so what's better than a spooky story to while away the day? Do you like ghosts? I do. I've written a story about one called Come Find Me, Mummy, set in the nursery of a creepy old house. It's one of 17 stories published in HorrorAddict.net's Chilling Manor of Frights anthology. I'll put a link to it below in my description. To help celebrate the anthology's launch this week, today, I'm going to tell you about another haunted house. Only this one's real and situated not too far away from where I live. This is the tragic story of the Screaming Skull of Burton Agnes Hall. Burton Agnes estate lies midway between Driffield and Bridlington in East Yorkshire, England. The estate is listed as Burton in the Domesday Book of 1086. In 1173, Roger de Stuteville built a Norman manor house there. The estate was first recorded as Burton Agnes in a deed in 1175, most likely having been named after Roger's daughter, Agnes. Burton Agnes is one of the few Yorkshire estates which, down the centuries, has never been sold, although it has sometimes slid sideways into another branch of the family when the current male line has died out. The Norman manor house still exists today. However, when Sir Henry Griffiths inherited the estate in Elizabethan times, he decided it wasn't grand enough for a man who'd just been appointed to Queen Elizabeth I's Council of the North, based in York in 1599. He wanted something much more sumptuous. In the first decade of the 17th century, Sir Henry commissioned master stonemason Robert Smithson to build him what has since been described as the perfect English house, one of the best, ranked alongside Windsor Castle and Buckingham Palace. Sir Henry had 3 daughters. The youngest, Catherine Anne Griffiths, known as Anne, was convinced their new home would be the most beautiful house ever built. She watched every stage of its progress, from the red brick walls rising higher and higher, to the stone plinth, coins, mullions and ornaments being added, and she talked of nothing else. She lived and breathed Burton Agnes Hall. One afternoon in 1620, when the house was almost completed, Anne went to visit their neighbours, the St. Quentins, who lived at Harpham about a mile away. She liked walking, so she went on foot, accompanied only by her dog. Around dusk she set off home again, but near St. John's Well she was set upon by ruffians who robbed her and viciously attacked her with clubs. When she was found, she was brought home to Burton Agnes, badly hurt and sometimes delirious. Realizing she was dying, she told her sisters she would never rest peacefully unless part of her could remain in our beautiful home as long as it shall last. She made them promise that when she was dead, her head should be severed and preserved in the hall forever. Her sisters were horrified, but Anne became so agitated they made the gruesome promise to pacify her. However, when Anne died shortly afterwards, she was buried in the local churchyard. As a memento mori, a portrait of the 3 sisters was commissioned, which now hangs in the Great Hall. Anne, on the right of it, is dressed in black to denote her deceased state. Because the sisters had broken their promise, Anne's ghost walked. She roamed the new house, scaring the life out of everyone unfortunate enough to encounter her. Remembering Anne's dying words, her sisters consulted the local vicar and finally agreed to the grave being opened and her casket exhumed. A grisly sight awaited them. Inside the casket, Anne's head had inexplicably become detached from her body. Although her body was still preserved, her head had withered and was almost completely skull-like. The sisters needed no further convincing that Anne's ghost was indeed responsible for all the terrifying goings-on at the new house. Anne's body was reinterred in the churchyard, but her skull was brought home to Burton Agnes Hall. All became peaceful. At various points down the centuries, however, attempts have been made to remove the skull from the house. A maid tried to get rid of it by throwing it from an upstairs window. The skull landed on a load of manure in a cart down below. The horses pulling the cart stopped dead. Despite everyone's efforts, they refused to move again until the maid confessed what she had done, and Anne's skull was retrieved and returned to the house. Another time, when the skull was removed and buried in the garden, fearful screams and wails echoed throughout the house. As soon as the skull was taken back indoors, Anne's ghost quietened again. The current occupier of Burton Agnes Hall, Simon Cunliffe Lister, states that Anne's skull is still in the property, built into one of the old walls, probably in the Great Hall. He says, "There is a letter in existence referring to the skull being hidden in the hall. We are happy to leave it undisturbed. It's more about respect than fear, although even now visitors to the hall have experienced bizarre things. We had sightings of a strange lady in the hall, and sometimes you can smell lavender or violets in rooms no one has been in. Who can doubt that Anne Griffith still watches over her beautiful home?" If you're visiting East Yorkshire and fancy taking part in a ghost hunt, check out Burton Agnes Hall's website for details. I'll include a link in my description below, along with a link to the Manor of Frights anthology with my ghost story in it. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about the screaming skull of Burton Agnes Hall. Please like and subscribe below to hear when I post more videos. Thank you for watching. See you next time on Rosetta's Reading Room.